The traditions of seamanship have long incorporated fundamental safety practices, many of which have been adopted in Oregon as legal requirements. This video covers 10 generally applicable laws that boaters should know. These laws exist in the form of statutes that are enacted by the Oregon legislature and in the form of rules that are adopted by the Oregon State Marine Board. Note that not every law is covered, such as the ones that are limited to local water bodies. The majority of these laws use the terms operate or operator to describe the person responsible for compliance. Under its statutory definition, operate means to navigate or otherwise use a boat. It is not always clear how broadly or narrowly the term applies to persons on a boat. The term navigate obviously refers to the person steering a motorboat, but how does the definition apply to vessels in which multiple people are steering? Conversely, how does the definition apply when no one is steering the boat, such as when someone decides to go dance in the bow instead of attend the helm? The phrase otherwise use arguably addresses these situations, but this interpretation could cover just about anyone on a boat. The only Oregon court opinion that interprets the definition implies a broad meaning, noting that the word otherwise means in a different way or manner, and the word use means the act or practice of using something. This broad interpretation covers persons other than the one steering the boat, but exactly whom is not always clear. There are 2 statutes that set forth a general prohibition against operating a boat in a manner that endangers persons or property. The difference between the two is that the prohibition against unsafe boating is a violation offense that can be punished by a fine and requires proof only that the conduct would likely endanger persons or property. The prohibition against reckless boating is a misdemeanor level crime that can be punished by a jail sentence, but requires proof that the violator knew that the boat was being operated in a dangerous manner. The requirement to maintain a proper lookout is governed by a statute and a rule. Both provisions require boaters to keep a proper lookout when underway, but the rule further clarifies that a proper lookout encompasses both sight and hearing. A boat is considered to be underway when it is not anchored, moored, made fast to the shore or ground. Thus, a proper lookout must be kept even when a boat is stopped or is drifting. The duty to maintain a proper lookout is enhanced when circumstances warrant increased vigilance, such as in areas where people, other vessels, and debris are likely to be present. Don't overlook the duty to keep a proper lookout by hearing. If you can't hear a sound signal from another vessel because your sound system is too loud, you are not keeping a proper lookout. Boaters are required to operate their boats no faster than will allow them to stop in time if a hazard is sighted. If you're rounding a bend and can't stop in time to avoid colliding with persons in the water or another boat, you are going too fast. Alcohol is permitted on boats in Oregon, although it is a factor in many fatalities. However, ORS 830-325 prohibits intoxicated persons from operating, propelling, or even being in physical control of a boat, and also makes it unlawful for the owner of a boat or the person in charge to allow an intoxicated person to operate or propel a boat. Similarly, ORS 830-365, subsection 4, makes it unlawful for persons to be under the influence when being towed behind a boat. ORS 830-355 states that no boat shall be loaded with passengers or cargo beyond its safe carrying capacity, taking into consideration weather and other normal operating conditions. It is enforceable via ORS 830-300 which states that no person shall operate a boat in violation of the boating statutes. ORS 830-360 prohibits anyone to ride or sit on the deck over the bow of a boat while it is underway, unless the boat is equipped with adequate guards or railings. The same applies to sitting on gunwales and transoms if the boat is traveling at speeds greater than 5 miles per hour. Sitting on railings is prohibited at any speed. ORS 830-362 prohibits a person from operating a motorboat or idling the engine while any person holds onto or occupies any part of the boat behind the transom for the purpose of riding or being pulled. An exception is that persons are allowed to briefly occupy a step, ladder, or platform when assisting in the docking or departure of the boat or when entering or exiting. The towed water sports statute is a variant of the unsafe boating statute that applies to operators, persons being towed, and anyone otherwise manipulating the direction of the tow. The basic requirement is to avoid hitting anything with the tow. The statute requires that an observer monitor the towed persons and that an orange flag be displayed whenever a towed person is in the water. Several statutes establish equipment requirements for boats, and ORS 830-210 prohibits a person from operating or giving permission to operate a boat in violation of those statutes. Depending upon the size and type of boat, there are requirements to carry personal flotation devices, also known as PFDs, and to equip boats with sound signaling devices, lights, fire extinguishers, engine backfire controls, mufflers, and ventilation devices. The most commonly enforced violations are the failure to have at least one PFD for each person on the boat and the failure to have a sound signaling device such as a whistle. Roughly 70% of the people who've died while boating in Oregon would have survived had they been wearing PFDs. However, the requirements to wear, as opposed to merely carry, PFDs are fairly limited. The first group of persons who are required to wear PFDs are children aged 12 and under, unless the child is below deck, in an enclosed cabin, or tethered to a sailboat. The second group consists of persons on personal watercraft, and reflects the fact that these vessels are prone to high impacts that can dislodge riders. The third group is persons in boats on Class 3 or higher whitewater. The latter requirement was enacted in 2009 at the request of a sheriff's deputy who had grown weary of conducting body recoveries in the aftermath of capsizes on the Deschutes River. Persons in these three groups must wear inherently buoyant, Coast Guard-approved PFDs. Inflatable PFDs are not an option. Although the overall wear rate of PFDs in Oregon is low, the wear requirements for these three groups have been well received and compliance is very high. The laws discussed in this video reflect good seamanship and common sense. Although avoiding the risk of a citation is one reason to abide by safety laws, being a safe and competent boater is the best reason.